Welcome to Seller's Journey, the podcast where we speak to great sales reps and leaders and share their real stories from start to sales success.
Hi, everybody. I'm Joseph Fung, and today I have the great pleasure of speaking with Maddison Fairbairn. She's a channel sales specialist at Auvik Networks. Maddison, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks so much for having me.
Well, thank you for joining us. I'm glad to have a little bit of your time.
You as well.
So you're at Auvik in channel sales. Can you tell me a little bit about what your role entails?
Yeah, so on our channel team here, we work with companies that serve a similar target market that we do. So I do a lot of co-leading sales programs for our software that ties into their integration as well.
Cool. Now, your experience is a lot like a lot of our audience, our other guests. But part of the reason I'm so delighted to have you on the call today is you've also started an organization to help people in their sales journey. Can you share a little bit about YSP?
Yeah, definitely. So YSP is Young Sales Professionals. I actually met with a colleague that kind of happened into sales, similar to the way I did and what I found a lot of people did when we were meeting people. And I wanted to create a better system for people to get on board, kind of understand it as a career, and just connect and network with like-minded peers.
Awesome. I'm really looking forward to coming back to YSP during our conversation, but we do like to focus on the journey. So let's take a step back and go earlier and kind of back to the beginning. Can you share with our audience, where'd you grow up? Where'd you go to school?
Yeah, so I grew up in Owen Sound, Ontario. It's a small town, kind of close to Collingwood, in between there and Sauble Beach. Came to Waterloo for university. I actually took a bachelor's in science. Right after graduating, I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. So I worked as a dental assistant for 3 months. And that's when I quickly realized I wanted something more dynamic, something where I could contribute to the company a little bit more and make a difference. And that's when I happened into a BDR role at Auvik. And from there, just kind of fell in love with the idea of sales as a whole and what an impact it can make.
I love the way you phrase that, happened to fall into a role as a BDR. I don't know if it's you had a client or, someone from Auvik was booking a dental appointment. What was the story? I'm so intrigued.
Yeah. So I was working in my current job and, just not having a good time. So I was applying to absolutely anything. I probably applied to 100 jobs in everything from sales to marketing to, working in a lab, just anything other than my current role. And then when I got the interview at Auvik and I met Mercedes Geimer, she was just someone that I knew I needed to work for. Just a great person. And that's kind of how it happened.
So, I hear that story, that kind of get me out of here feeling. And when we spoke before, you mentioned something about, that balance. You started in science and happened to get into sales as opposed to planning for it. Would you have done something different if you were revisiting that journey?
Yeah, if I was revisiting that journey, I probably would have still stuck in science at an early age. I think I've learned great things with research and kind of developing a voice. But then the biggest thing is probably would have taken some business classes to prepare me for what I am now, playing a little bit of catch up.
Fair. And I love how you spoke about your conversations and interviews with Mercedes. Not everybody who sends out those 100 resumes gets the interviews. What do you think you did differently than other candidates?
You know what? I have no idea because I had one interview out of 100. So it was the spray and pray method on that one.
Well, you nailed it. What about Mercedes led you to say that was someone you had to work for?
So the interview was very genuine compared to any other ones I've had earlier in life. It was literally just a conversation like, who are you? Where have you been? based on your resume, you're qualified, but I want to find out if you're someone that I want to coach and work through with for your career.
That's fantastic. Now, as we talk about your career, you started as a BDR and then quickly advanced to the sales specialist role. And you spoke a little bit earlier about the circumstances that got you to founding YSP.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you can share a bit about that. I'd love to understand the details a bit more.
Yeah, so I actually connected with one of my classmates on LinkedIn, and we saw that even though we both had a science undergrad, we ended up in a sales role. So we met up, we're networking, and thought, hey, this is actually really cool. I bet there's a lot of other people out there that would like this opportunity to connect with peers and start to actually build a network of people outside of their company. So especially earlier on, the only people are the ones you work with every day, and having a network is so important.
Now, it's a fairly young organization, but you've had incredible success. I remember you sharing some numbers. Can you share a little bit with our audience in terms of like the membership attraction? Because it's quite impressive for the speed with which it's launched.
Yeah, so we have been running for just under a year now. We've had 2 panel events and 2 social events. Our membership is almost at 250, and the last event we hosted was over 100 people attended our panel event.
That's a fantastic update. Congratulations. That's a fantastic amount of progress.
Yeah, thank you.
Now, during that, you talked about meeting a classmate or a colleague. One of the things that also stands out in the journey of women in tech sales is we often hear comments about how their sales teams don't have as many women as they'd want to when they're looking for networks, when they're looking for peers. I know that you've only been at Auvik so far, and so it may not be representative of the broader kind of companies you work with or chat with.
Mm-hmm.
But if you encountered anything similar, and how does that feel?
Yeah, so I mean, we have less women than men on our sales team, as most companies do. I think the biggest thing is the stigma around sales from the beginning. Very competitive, very cutthroat type of attitude, which I think is actually changing. It's becoming more of a nurturing process rather than that highly competitive atmosphere, which women do excel in that environment, the nurturing environment, and teaching people the value and understanding your product. So I think we'll see it change over the next couple of years, or at least I hope. But I think it's really the stigma that's lending it towards that currently.
So it sounds like you're suggesting there's an assumption that sales is going to be really, really aggressive, maybe less nurturing, less supportive. And as a result, women aren't taking and pursuing those opportunities as much. Am I hearing that right?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I definitely thought that before I was in the role. Even when I started as a BDR, I didn't think I wanted to actually become a sales or account manager. And that changed pretty quickly once you actually learned what it was.
Can we dig in a little bit in there? What did you think the role was going to be like?
Yeah, so I thought it was going to be more of a convince people to buy this product no matter what, and that's all that's important. But it's more about finding the right fit for your product, whatever it is, and really teaching them what it is, how it works, and figuring out if it is valuable and matching that up.
I like the way you phrase it. That brings to mind, the ideas of matchmaking as opposed to pushing something on someone.
Yeah.
Interesting. Now, one of the things that we hear from a lot of our audience members as they embark and get into a sales journey is that they sometimes struggle to reconcile the very competitive environment of sales with their core beliefs. And it sounds like you struggled similarly, that sales role versus what you wanted for yourself. How do you reconcile those? And when you hear audience members, questioning that, what thoughts come to mind for you?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is believing in the product of the company that you're working for, whether it's multiple or just one. it's not really selling it. It's just teaching people about it. And if you believe it's going to help their business or help their life, it makes it a lot easier to really get in there. And if you're a competitive person, obviously you want to win, but it's easier to do that when you believe in what you're selling.
I like that idea that it's easier to be, competitive but authentic when you believe in the company and the product. I can see that. I do want to come back to YSP, and I don't want to keep you too long, so let me switch gears to that. You shared some of the growth, some of the traction. Would love to hear what are some of your goals. What do you hope to accomplish in the coming year or two with YSP, particularly given the fact that so many sellers are now selling remotely, working from home, sheltering in place. What do you hope to accomplish?
Yeah, so I really want to keep that sense of community. Currently, we are very active in that Kitchener-Waterloo community, but hoping to branch that out to other cities as well, whether it be Toronto or California, wherever it might take us. But just growing it as much as possible and really giving people a place. Or young sales professionals, I want people to be able to look at that and be like, that's something that I fit into as well.
So speaking about fitting in, it's often easier for people when they can empathize and see themselves in, in their journey. So why don't we click a little bit into your journey?
Yeah.
When you think about your successes so far, you're early on, but you've had some great roles. You founded a great organization. What stands out as an accomplishment you're particularly proud of? What's the headline that we can share when we're introducing you?
So I feel like we've kind of already discussed it a little bit, but definitely starting YSP is a huge one. I'm also really proud of, the learning and work I've put into at Auvik as well, helping build onboarding programs and that kind of thing. I really just wanted to learn as much as I can and share it with as many people as I can.
That's an interesting one. I love the fact that you focused on the sharing, and we didn't talk about that at all. If you can, maybe you can help us understand what was it that you had to create that's normally outside of the responsibilities of a BDR or a sales rep.
Yeah. So when I started, there was just a few things, like we learned it all in PowerPoints and different videos and looking at the product itself. Whereas personally, I wanted more of like a textbook resource of something you could refer back to, like a glossary of anything you needed to know. So I made it for myself as I was learning and taking notes, and then it evolved into a training document.
That's fantastic. I imagine you've helped, not just yourself through that, but a ton of others.
I actually get really excited because I still own the Google Doc. So anyone makes a comment or changes something, I'm like, yes, they're using it.
I love it. That's so good. You just wait. At some point, you'll find somebody who comes again out of the dental industry and gets into Auvik and digs into your stories too.
Yeah, great.
Okay, so I know that I promised I wouldn't keep you too long. I've got just a couple of more questions. You shared what you hope to accomplish with YSP. What about for you personally? If you cast your eyes forward 5-10 years, what do you hope to congratulate future Maddison for?
Yeah. So that's a really hard question, obviously, and for everybody, but
that's good. That means I'm choosing good questions for this podcast.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing is I almost want to set myself up as a Jack, or I guess a Janet of all trades. I want to keep learning, not just in sales and perfecting that craft, but sales enablement, marketing, anything to do with revenue. Just learn as much as I can over the next 10 years and hopefully look back and be like, good job, you worked hard.
Nice. I love it. Now, you're one of the kind of exciting and fortunate few people who have realized that they didn't want their current role and they wanted to leap into tech sales. As you look back on kind of making that leap, and I'm sure you've heard this question from so many others, but what advice do you have for people who are similarly trying to make that leap? What should they keep in mind?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is look at your past experience and try to tie it into any of the role requirements.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the times, postings for sales roles will say, 1 to 2 years of sales experience.
Mm-hmm.
But really, anything customer facing is sales experience. So just think about, what you've learned and how you can tie that into what a potential employer might be wanting from an employee.
Awesome. Okay. Do you have time for a couple of quick fire rapid questions before we go?
Absolutely.
First off, what's your favorite sales tool?
Sales Loft.
Nice. We're a Sales Loft shop as well, so I can empathize with that.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Huge productivity lift. Gotta love it. Outside of work, movies. What's your favorite movie?
Favorite movie is Clueless.
Nice. Now, I know your answer is not going to be a dental assistant, but when you were a kid, what did you want to grow up to be?
So I probably changed my mind about 100 times when I was a kid. Pilot, interior designer, doctor. I was always jealous of my little sister. She was about 4 years old and she wanted to be a shark when she grew up.
Oh, wow. That's pretty badass.
Yeah, right?
Well, I'd say you've stayed true to it. I mean, if you were all of those things, you definitely would be a Janet of all trades. So at least there's definitely some early indicators there.
Yeah.
Maddison, this has been such a delight. Thank you so much for joining us and sharing your story. Thank you.
No problem. Thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure. I am looking forward to catching up at the next YSP event. And so I hope that you keep safe and sound and looking forward to chatting again.
I will. You as well.
Take care.
Have a good one.